The sum product function in Excel can be used in so many different situations. The most common scenario is calculating the weighted averages. And now before we work out a practical example on how the sum product works, let us first understand this data set. This is fictional data for a fictional company that produces software manuals. The company is embarking on a new project to produce a range of new manuals. And what they are looking to do is model the project cost and revenue in Excel. The first thing that we need to help this company with is working out how long each task is going to take in the project for each training manual, and they've broken down these tasks into several high-level tasks. What they want to do is get an estimate of how long each of those tasks is going to take. They are using a classic project management technique here, where they've got a pessimistic estimate, a likely estimate, and an optimistic estimate. And what they want to do is get an average of these three to get their actual estimates. In fact, what they have actually done is add more weighting to the most likely estimate, and here the proposal is that the pessimistic only has a weighting of 1, the optimistic a weighting of 1, but the likely a weighting of 4. And it's possible that they may want to play around with these figures or weightings, so these values may be subject to change. Now the question here is, we need to calculate the weighted average hours for each task based on these estimates. So to start with, I'll show you two manual methods to calculate the weighted averages, and later on I'll show you how the sum product can do the same task in a much more easier and faster way. So what we want to actually do is to multiply 64 into the weighting here, which is a 1, plus 36 into the weighting here, which is a 4, plus 32 into the weighting that has been allocated, which is a 1, and then later on divide by the sum of the weightings. So that's how we calculate the weighted averages. So to do that, I'll come over to this cell and say equals, I'll open the sum function, 64 into 1, comma, 36 into 4, comma, and 32 into this weighting right here. I close off the sum function, and because I'm interested in the average, I'll divide this by the sum of the weightings. I close off the second sum from here and hit enter key on the keyboard. And because we want to copy this formula down, I'll come back to the formula and make some of the cell addresses absolute, especially the weightings. So I'll entirely lock this range, F4 key on the keyboard, and now I also need to lock this particular cell address, D3, F4 key on the keyboard. I can also lock C3, F4 key on the keyboard, and I can also lock B3 as well, F4 key on the keyboard, hit enter key. Now I can drag this formula to the rest of the cells. Now this one gives us the total hours that are needed to accomplish all these tasks. The second manual method would be, you say equals, you open brackets and you say 64 into 1, close brackets, plus, I open brackets, 36 into 4, I close brackets, plus 32 into 1. I open and close brackets for the last segment of my calculation. And because I want to divide the results of these three calculations, I will open another bracket here, close it up at the end, and divide this entire thing by the sum of the weightings, which I will make absolute, F4 key on the keyboard, and close off the second sum. Now I need to lock our references for the weightings. D3 should be locked. Hit enter. We get the same result. Now I can drag this particular formula to the rest of the cells. Now if you want to avoid these two methods, if they seem to be clumsy, then you can use the sum product. So you'll come over here and say equals sum product. The sum product requires that you give it an array. Now the first array will be these values for the high level design, comma, and the second array will be from B3 all the way through to D3 and close our sum product function. Now, because we're interested in calculating the weighted average, we shall actually divide this by the sum of our weightings. F4 key on the keyboard, close off the second sum, and hit enter key on the keyboard. This one will give us literally the same results like we did in our first examples, and now we can drag this formula to the rest of the cells. Now, in our last example, we want to come over to this cell and find out how many of these tasks are going to take 100 hours or more to complete. But instead of using the count ifs, for example, we are going to use the sum product. So you can start typing equals sum product. I will say 1 times, and then I open the brackets. Here we are going to do a logical test, and we are going to be using any of these ranges. Let's actually use the sum product range, and we would like to check as to whether it is greater or equals to 100. We close off the second open brackets and also close our first open brackets. So when I hit enter key here, we expect a 3, and sure enough, there it is. Now, as we conclude, if you found this video very helpful, just give it a like. You can leave any comment on what your thoughts are on this particular video. See you in the next one.